Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Janavallabha Girivardhari Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanaran Yashoda Yashodanandana Brajajanaran Yashoda Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Sugandha Jaya Sudarsana Jaya Jaya Radha Krishna Chandra Radha Krishna Chandra Radhe Jaya Jaya Nithai Gauranga Jaya Nithai Gauranga Nithai Gauranga Jaya Nithai Gauranga Jaya Nithai Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Namaste Narasimha Jaya Namaste Jaya 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 Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्री श्रीमद अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर सदस्य श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर श्री नवद्वीप धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। द्वारका धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी महारानी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर भक्त प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Sri Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome for this Seshadripuram Srivasangan chapter morning Srimad-Bhagavatam class. So today we are discussing third canto, third chapter, second half. So this has 28 verses, the third chapter of third canto, and the chapter is entitled The Lord's Pastime Out of Vrindavan. So we will discuss therefore from the 15th verse to the 28th verse. I will chant the first verse in Sanskrit, then we will read the English translations for all the other verses. Mito yadaisham bhavita vivado madva madatamra vilochananam naisham vadopayayanato anyo Mayi udyate antarbhadeta swayam. Translation: when they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. So, this is, as the chapter indicates. Before that, let me just say my prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Urnitimena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prayataya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this, as the chapter indicates, the Lord's pastimes out of Vrindavan. So this section deals with whatever the Lord did after leaving Vrindavan. And up to now, you have had a very, very, very high level, like the entire Mahabharata, I think, is finished in one verse or something like that. The battle of Mahabharata, that was finished in one line in the summary chapter. So now, after that, the Lord is thinking here that, it's now time to wind up the pastimes from here. And in that context, he is thinking, how can all the associates of the Lord who all came, it's always mentioned, the Lord comes, whenever he comes with all his associates. The king or the president of a country, if you see, they never come alone. There's a battery of cars and, so many security vans, an ambulance, so many things come along with them. But when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna comes, naturally, you will find an entourage of his devotees and all his well-wishers, so many people from higher planetary system, joining him to take part in the pastimes. So here also, all the Yadus who were his relatives, who were his friends, all the people in who came along with him from his childhood, who were there. So they were all not ordinary personalities, like the karmic karma bound living entities who are here to suffer in this material world, which is Ashashvatam Dukkale. So these are personalities who are very, very highly evolved in spiritual life, who are evolved in their consciousness. And they had actually come along with the Supreme Personality of Godhead to take part in this wonderful pastime. So he's thinking, how can these people now, how can these people go back? It's not like, it's a kind of death can come upon them, or they have got some karma because of which they have to die on so-and-so date or whatever. So the Lord has to manifest some kind of a plan to send all these great personalities back from this after winding up this pastime. And therefore, he's putting up the scheme that, okay, let's make a show of that, these the relatives and the all the Edu dynasty, these people put up a show like they were all intoxicated. And the human tendency thinks also, right? Oh, when you are intoxicated, however great you are, your brain is completely confused. From a material perspective, that is perfect, and therefore that's why we say do not drink. Like you lose your identity. Like we forget who we are, and we have seen many people, very highly educated people, are very, very refined people materially, but when they drink, you see how they can actually behave in a very in a manner which you can't even think of. I have personally seen wonderful personalities, from a material perspective, very evolved, very fine, very sophisticated. But the minute they drink, then they completely lose their original state and they became like fools. Like I've seen this kind of behavior personally. So the Lord is thinking, therefore, okay, let's make these people drink so that the world can believe that, how can these people do like that? Yes, they can do because they are intoxicated. They don't know who they are. They are behaving like that. So he conceives a plan by that kind of an activity. Let them all fight amongst themselves and then create a show that all these people died, in the fight. So that was the thing conceived by the Lord. And here it is mentioned, then how can these personalities, such great personalities, fall into such illusion? So there also Prabhupada explains, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these personalities are all completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever the Lord wishes, they are here to perform. That's all. Like even Arjuna, it's not like Arjuna did not know what was happening because he is an eternal friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He could fight Lord Shiva, right? And Lord Shiva being pleased, he gave him that Pashupashastram, that Astram. So like that, and he could transverse this entire material universe and go to Vaikuntha just with the same body and come back also from there, along with, of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means he's so close to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is completely out of the cycle of birth and death, out of the cycle of karmic reactions. But nonetheless, he was under this illusion that, his Gandiva was shaking when he was faced with a situation that he has to kill his brothers and his uncles and grandfather, his guru, everybody. And he said, no, Krishna, I can't do this. I can't fight. I think it is all wrong. When the Lord himself is instructing him to fight, he's saying, I think this is all incorrect. This is not the right way to look at the whole stuff. So this is the way he's thinking. And even this entire Bhagavatam came through because of the so-called act of Parikshit Maharaj. Such an amazing personality, the one who can rule this entire world in perfect state. Such a person taking a very silly behavior of, thinking someone is not actually honoring me when I'm here, and then putting a dead snake on like a garland to that person, a very evolved Muni, a saintly person. Nobody will do such things. Like even if you feel offended, you will never say something against them, or you will never act in any way. But will you put a dead snake garland on that person and walk away from there? Parikshit Maharaj will never do that. But again, this was the will of the Lord, because Srimad-Bhagavatam had to be spoken. And that shows their surrendered situation. How if we are to do something like this, we'll say, how can I do this? I'm such an evolved person. People see me like this. And if I do this silly act, how will my image go? But such great personalities do not bother about all that. They are only bothered about, how do I surrender to the Supreme Lord? How do I follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord? So the Lord actually created a situation where he's wanting, like Arjuna, to forget his real state and lament like an ordinary living entity, or even Parikshit Maharaj. In that sense, all of these, the Yadus, whoever were the descendants in that dynasty, all of them also were put into that kind of a illusion where they are actually feeling like, I should be intoxicated and we should fight with each other. They were all so close to each other, so very friendly. How come that they can immediately fight over a silly matter like that? But that's there. So that is the beginning of this this section. Now let's go to the next one. Lord Sri Krishna, thus thinking to himself, established Maharaja Yudhishthira in the position of supreme control of the world in order to show the ideal of administration on the part of piety. So this is there that the Lord, there's no purport given for this one, but at a high level, the Lord thinking, okay, it's time to wind up my pastime. So I and my entourage, all my eternal associates, we need to leave from here. Let's prepare and let's therefore install Yudhishthira, who's perfect in his dharmic principles. Make him the ruler of this entire planet. And then under his able administration, things should be nice and I can actually leave. That was the thought by the Lord, from the Lord. The embryo of Puru's descendant, begotten by the great hero Abhimanyu in the womb of Uttara, his wife, was burnt by the weapon of the son of Drona. But later he was again protected by the Lord. So giving a little bit of that thing of how Yudhishthira later after him, how that rule will happen. From that point of view, here this this is remembered of how Abhimanyu's son Parikshit Maharaj, how he was protected in the womb of Uttara. So there Prabhupada is describing how Abhimanyu's child was there in the womb of Uttara, and this Drupada, who is the son of their guru, Dronacharya, who out of vengeance actually tries to kill the child which is in the womb. Nobody will think of it. Today in Kali Yuga, we are thinking of this so much, right? If you go every day, there are hundreds and thousands of child being killed in the womb. So this is like unthinkable in the Vedic times. Nobody will ever dare to do such a thing. It's murder. And here this Drona, maybe he started off this Ashwatthama, that he started off this what do you call, the womb killing, and then it is continuing. He is the, I don't know if he is the original Acharya for this, and today every home it is happening, like everywhere people are just simply killing the embryo. I don't know what they call this. I don't know. They call this something in modern times, and it is accepted by the law also. But then they gave within X number of weeks, a fetus can be killed. And then there are exceptions given. Okay, if it is 2 more weeks also, you can kill. Those kind of court rulings can be given, and then that becomes legal, and that is not considered as death. Okay, someone prompted abortions. So that is something which is being done day in and day out in most of our hospitals. But that was a very heinous crime, and this Ashwatthama actually decided to do that. And the Lord actually, therefore, the Lord can be can become the smallest of the small, and he can become the biggest of the big. And in that sense, the Lord actually becomes very small and enters the womb of Uttara, and he actually protects that child. But here it is mentioned that by the great hero was burnt by the weapon of the son of Drona. So that body was burnt when that thing was sent in. And Prabhupada writes, yes, it is, every body is supposed to be, lost in the process of our, in the material world. Everything gets degenerated and we have to go. But the soul which is permanent has to take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore the Lord, even though while this body got burnt, he ensured that that soul did not leave that womb, that he ensured he gave another body to that womb. That body, that old body, was generated by the combination of Abhimanyu and Uttara, by the body fluids. Prabhupada writes about all that. But at the end of the day, even if that body was burnt, the Lord ensured that particular soul continued to reside in the womb of Uttara, and then got the ability to come out and then rule the world after Yudhishthira's rule. So that is being discussed here. And he says, the Lord, by his power of omnipotence, he was present both inside and outside of Uttara and other members of the Pandava family. So that's the absolute greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can be there everywhere. And that is that past times happened, and that has been discussed in this verse. The next one, the Supreme Lord induced the son of Dharma to perform 3 horse sacrifices. And Maharaja Yudhishthira, constantly following Krishna, the personality of Godhead, protected and enjoyed the earth assisted by his younger brothers. So here the position of a ruler has been indicated. The ruler is actually the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world. That should be understood very clearly. The Lord is the supreme proprietor of this entire universe. It is not like, just because I own this flat, I am the owner, or just because I am an MLA or an MP that, I am the king of this piece of land or whatever. These are considered to be the representative of the Lord to administer activities within that section under which is under his or her control. So in this case, Yudhishthira was given the control of this entire planet Earth. Yudhishthira was the king of the entire planet at that point in time. Hastinapur was the capital of the entire universe. It's while there were always small rulers, but they were all subjected to the ultimate command of the supreme commander of that particular universe. Just like we have a country which has a capital. As a country, we have a capital in New Delhi, but we have many smaller states. But all the states are still subject to the overall control of the central government governed from Delhi. So like that, even though there is independence, even though there is local administration, but ultimately they had to surrender to the central rule. So like that, all over the universe, there were many kings. In fact, Krishna himself was part of that, of a smaller king under the higher rule of Yudhishthira. That's also mentioned. That Krishna, even though he is the supreme personality of Godhead, he was subjecting himself to the overall command of Yudhishthira. Mathura was the Dwaraka was where Krishna was ruling as the king, was also under the jurisdictions of Yudhishthira's rule. So, but that is the system where the highest ruler will be the governor for the entire universe. And in that sense, Yudhishthira followed the principles, walked in the path of Krishna. So that is important. So we are also seeing even in ISKCON, I've seen and heard many devotees like, today we also have a GBC, Governing Body Commission. But you will see many spiritual masters actually are there, but their disciples will be the GBCs. And sometimes when these GBCs and the spiritual master, like, the disciple and the guru is there, but the disciple will be holding a higher position within ISKCON as the GBC. Sometimes the spiritual master will follow the instructions of that disciple, because that was the decision taken by the governing body commission and by the spiritual, by the disciple, but the guru will follow. That doesn't mean, here the disciple is bigger than the guru. That needs that fine understanding. Like this here, Krishna is actually, in one sense, subordinate to Yudhishthira, because he is ruling from a area which is actually subordinated to the rule of Yudhishthira. But that doesn't mean Yudhishthira therefore was thinking independently of Krishna. So Yudhishthira was actually following the footsteps of Krishna, whatever directions Krishna asked him to do, and he was following that dharma. And Prabhupada writes, perfect monarchy necessitates representation of the supreme will of the Lord. That is actually a proper rule. Proper rule means whether you are able to follow the complete instructions of the Supreme Lord, because he is the original proprietor. Like, if you are the power of attorney, they say right here in legal terms, we say power of attorney. That means if you give me the power of attorney to administer your property, then I will act on your behalf. But when I act, my action has to be in relation to what you want me to do and not I do independently. Similarly, all these kings or any position, any power or any position of power, in this material world, none of that belongs to any of us. This entire universe belongs to that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, we can think in modern legal terms that like if you have to take the India, then the Prime Minister, the President, they are actually having the power of attorney on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to govern this land called India, Bharatavarsha. And they have to act in relation to what the Lord wants. And Lord has amply said whatever has to be done. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and in the Vedas, all the wonderful Shastras. And the king's duty bound to follow the Shastras of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then his rule is perfect. That is what is mentioned here. And Maharaja Yudhishthira was the ideal monarch on this supreme principle. Both the king and the subjects were happy in the discharge of worldly duties and thus protection of the citizens and enjoyment of natural life with full cooperation of material nature followed in the reign of Maharaja Yudhishthira and his worthy descendants like Maharaj Parikshit. This is the system, he says, no? Surdam sarva bhutanam nyatva mam shanti mruchati. That means if we are able to understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the well-wisher of every living entity, then we will attain peace. That principle is being followed. That means if we follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is absolute peace. See, today, there is so much of confusion in this material world. If you really see, there is so much fights going on. There is so much threats of war. There is so much suffering due to calamities which are happening because of climate change. There are mountains shaking, right? Even holy pilgrimage sites, people just go there for a pilgrimage, and then everybody is washed out like small ants floating in. When you suddenly open a tap and some ants are there, then everything is just flooded into the gutter. Like this, humans are just losing their lives like small ants in this in the hands of the demigods who are actually controlling all the natural aspects of this universe. But if we are actually following the Shastras, if we are following the path laid down by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demigods with folded hands will serve the human beings. This is the reality. They are actually waiting to serve devotees. But because the population has become so demoniac, the demigods are more interested in killing all the demons rather than protecting them and giving them facilities to live in this material world. But if one who's actually following the principles laid down by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have a wonderful life in this material world. Not that idea is to enjoy material world, but the facility to because we have anyway fallen, right? That's a statement of fact. Nobody can deny that. Therefore, unless you have a proper environment, how can you actually think of going back to Godhead? If you are fighting for your survival, where will you think of God? So there is an element of, I'm talking of the normal 99% of the population. Forget about the pure devotees who are not dependent on all of these things. But by and large, the society at large, they need to have some peace in their life so that they can concentrate on devotional life. And that will be provided provided people follow the right from the king, if they are able to follow the principles nicely. So that has been discussed here. And then talking about the Lord, what was he doing also? Like, while these people are all having a nice life, what was the Lord doing? That is being mentioned in this next verse, where it is mentioned, simultaneously, the personality of God had enjoyed life in the city of Dwaraka, strictly in conformity with the Vedic customs of society. He was situated in detachment and knowledge as enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy.
I think we have lost the connection.
Hare Krishna, I'm sorry, there was a power failure here, and I had to be right to connect to alternate mode. Please bear with me. Now we will continue. So we were discussing the situation of the Lord when he was, after he installed Maharaj Yudhishthir in the throne. Then he actually went to Dwaraka, and he was also enjoying life is mentioned, but we will see a few more verses which is sometimes bewildering further down. But before that, the principle is laid down here for us to not let our imagination run loose. So it's mentioned, simultaneously the personality of God had enjoyed life in the city of Dwaraka strictly in conformity with the Vedic custom of society. He was situated in detachment and knowledge as enunciated by the Sankhya system of philosophy. So here the foundation is laid while in the Grahasthashram, the population are actually living in a situation where there is a little bit of a facility for gratification is given, but that was clearly allowed within a prescribed boundary, right? So, and the Lord, being the Lord, he is beyond all of this material rules and regulations. But at the same time, he being the supreme personality of Godhead, he is the proprietor of everything here, and he is the creator of everything, but he is not at all attached to any of these things. That is very important. That if we forget that principle, then we will be bewildered. So he personally is not interested in what he has, created. That is only for the living entities who are so desiring to enjoy independent of him. Therefore, he created, okay, if you want to enjoy independent of me, thinking that you are the Lord of the universe, I will create a place for you where you can go and do this imagination and fantasize all that. So he knows this is a fantasy world, not a real world. And just like if you, for example, if you have children and you drive the real car, right? But your son or daughter, they seeing you drive, the car, they also want to drive the car. Oh, I want to drive the car. But being so young, 4 years, 3 years, and whatever, the children are not in a position to drive. Therefore, you give them a toy car. Okay, you play with this toy car. But do we really attach ourselves to the toy car? We know it's a toy car. It has got nothing to do with this one. So this is a very, this example, don't take it literally. Therefore, does the Lord therefore enjoy in his own state in material world, in the spiritual world? Yes, he does enjoy, but that is not the enjoyment what we are thinking is the enjoyment. That we will also see in further verses. But the Lord is not actually interested in enjoying anything in this material world. That much is you need to be clear with. And he is completely detached. He actually taught people how one should live. That is mentioned. The Lord was acting freely as he willed, yet by his practical example, he taught not to lead the life which goes against the principles of detachment and knowledge, because that is a very core principle for people to develop so that they actually fulfill the mission of life. Otherwise, we are going to get sucked further and further into the cycle of repeated birth and death, old age and disease. So that is being discussed in this verse 19. Now look at 20. He was there in his transcendental body, the residence of the goddess of fortune, with his usual gentle and sweetly smiling face, his nectarian words, and his flawless character. So he continued to remain as the supreme personality of Godhead, not to mistake him that, he's actually come to this material world and he's taken a material body. That is there. No? It's been written. He was there in his transcendental body, not in the body that we can relate to, like our bodies, that which is perishable. No, he came in his transcendental body. And what is that body? It is the residence of the goddess of fortune. That is mentioned. And Prabhupada quotes, in the Vishnu Purana also, the internal potency of Vishnu is described as Parashakti. The Lord is never detached from the association of Parashakti. This Parashakti and her manifestation are described in the Brahma Samhita as Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bihi. That means so there's a kind of a thing when you are saying detachment, therefore is he really detached from his devotees? No, the Lord is never detached from his devotees, but at the same time he is detached. So here the example of this Lakshmi is being given. She is residing inside him, and he has this wonderful relationship with all the devotees, like be it here Lakshmi or the Nitya Siddhas of the spiritual world, and they certainly have a wonderful enjoying relationship amongst themselves. It is not like a dry, oh no, I am so detached, I will be, not like that. But at the same time, it is not the kind of material attachment that we are talking about to the body, to the material things or whatever, which gives gratification to the material senses, not in that sense. So that is being mentioned here. The Lord is eternally joyful and cognizant in the taste derived from such transcendental bliss. Therefore, he is certainly enjoying, but not the way we are able to. We are conditioned to think of enjoyment in one particular way. That is because of our unfortunate situation. But we can't equate the Lord also to be enjoying in a similar manner in which we are enjoying. That's why it is mentioned he is in a transcendental body, but we are in this material body, and our material brain can think in a material way. But the Lord's transcendental body is completely beyond all this material way of enjoyment. That needs to be understood. And it is mentioned his smile, his character, and everything related to him are all transcendental. Such manifestation of the internal potency are the reality, of which this material shadow is only a temporary representation from which everyone with proper knowledge must be detached. So that reality is the real original enjoyment, which for us, it can only be a theory. At some small fraction in our life, we also experience that, but we are not able to remain there. We are more into the material enjoyment, but never equate this enjoyment, what we are having in this material world, to be the same what the Lord is enjoying. Whenever it's mentioned, the Lord is enjoying. The Lord is not enjoying in these terms. That is to be understood. But by developing the detachment to this material world, we will be able to appreciate that enjoyment better. So that is also mentioned, right? All the sages, they are actually hankering for the enjoyment. Sometimes we think, the sages are so detached, and when you see, these people, they eat very, very, tasteless food. They are taking so much austerities. When you see Maharaj and all coming, they will eat without salt. They will eat only, not very opulent, very, very, even the food may look opulent, but how it is cooked, how it is to be cooked, or, they'll say, don't put a lot of chilies, don't put a lot of, no salt whatsoever. And many of these things will be there. Then we think, they are not they are wasting their life. They are not enjoying. So much different varieties are given. Why are they eating like this, like that? But actually, they are going after the highest enjoyment. This Rama is actually called. It's a pleasure. So they are looking for that Rama, not this material enjoyment. So they are looking for the highest enjoyment. For that, one has to be detached here so that we are able to develop taste for that. So that is the real enjoyment, and therefore detachment has to be developed. That's been discussed here. Then next verse. The Lord enjoyed his pastimes both in this world and in other worlds, higher planets, specifically in the association of the Edu dynasty. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. So now that's why I talked about this one. If you see, Krishna is really enjoying, and that too is specifically mentioned. At leisure hours offered by night, he enjoyed the friendship of conjugal love with women. So we can immediately relate everything back to our own way of what we think is enjoyment. So don't get misled by the words that is there in Srimad-Bhagavatam. We may say, this is there in Bhagavatam. No, that is not how we understand. We understand it through the vision of the Acharyas. So the Lord, of course, did have, he married, right, 16,000 covered girls. Then, this Rakshasa was there. What is his name? This Deepavali we celebrate. Narakasura. So that gentleman or demon, he actually abducted many women, and he had actually caged them, put them all under prison. And the Lord had actually gone to save these women. And then after he saved all of them, they were very happy that, wow, you saved us, Krishna, thankful. But then they were also asking this question, okay, Krishna, this is fine, but we have been captive under this demon. Now who will marry us? In today's world is different, where chastity has no meaning. But then it was there, so if you have been in another person's house and you stayed overnight or something like that, then the question will come, therefore, how contaminated or how pure you are in your mind. Necessarily need not be physical also, it could be in the mind also. But therefore, how is it that you are actually considered to be, someone worthy of marrying? The society may think like that. And therefore, we will not be able to marry. Therefore, what will we do? So then Krishna said, okay, no problem, I will marry all of you. So that is the way he actually married this. It's not because, he was so lusty that, he wanted to marry so many women. No, not that. So when they pleaded and they wanted shelter from Krishna, he said, okay, I shall do. Why 16,000, 16 million he can marry? Because everything belongs to him. All these jivas belongs to him. Already is married. That is the fact. He's protecting all of us, We are all his dependents. Therefore, he is our master, right? The Purusha is the enjoyer. That's the meaning. Purusha means is the enjoyer. So we are his subjects and he is the enjoyer. And in that sense, every living entity is his wife, Okay, people may not like what I'm speaking from a modern context, but I'm not saying anything contrary also. It is natural, right? The one who's the what do you call, is the ultimate shelter, then everything belongs to him, and as he enjoys, then the subjects actually get the real enjoyment. Real enjoyment is when the Lord enjoys us, we are able to also get that reciprocation enjoyment. Otherwise, everything else is actually shadow. But real enjoyment is when you serve the Lord and we get also to enjoy. And this is the real enjoyment from a spiritual perspective, or the real perspectives. Not that, okay, therefore material is different, spiritual is different. No, the real purpose of human being is actually to serve the Lord and derive enjoyment, which is the actual permanent enjoyment which can ever be. That means that is absolute truth. So, therefore, he married, and through each of these women, he had 10 children. So, but then again, we don't look at this materially, because the Lord does not have to use his senses like the way we use our senses. So the Lord actually eats with his eyes. He can eat with his ear. He can impregnate with his eyes. We see when the Lord glanced over material nature and then it was filled with life. That is there in all the scriptures. What does it mean? How can he see and then how he can create life? By his eyes, he is procreating. We cannot comprehend all these things. Therefore, and we should not also think, therefore, oh, Krishna had 116,000 wives and then 10 children for each, and the way we related to this material way of procreation. No, it is not like that. So that is being mentioned and discussed here, and it is also mentioned it is there mentioned in the Skanda Purana. See, it's mentioned here, right? All these attachments of the Lord are manifestation of his internal potency, of which the external potency is only a shadow representation. In the Skanda Purana, Prabhasa Kanda, in the topics between Lord Shiva and Gaudi, there is confirmation of his internal potency manifestation. So these things are not external, materially the way we see it, but this is the a pleasure potency of the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is manifest, and through that, all of these relationship with all the 16,108 wives and the children as an outcome, if you are to think in that sense. Next verse. The Lord was thus engaged in household life for many, many years, but at last his detachment for ephemeral sex life was fully manifested. And again, it is reiterating, do not immediately relate this to material enjoyment. Even though the Lord is never attached to any kind of material sex life, Prabhupada is writing. As the universal teacher, he remained a householder for many, many years. So he just basically taught people that, you need to be, if you are in the rest ashram, you should be taking care of your wife, you should take care of your children, you should make them happy, all these things. But this is only a teaching, but not that he was physically indulging in some activities like that. For many, many years, just to teach others how one should live in householder life. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura explains that the word samajayata means fully exhibited. In all his activities while present on the earth, the Lord exhibited detachment. That is important. This was fully displayed when he wanted to teach by example that one should not remain attached to household life for all the days of one's life. One should naturally develop detachment as a matter of course. So this, the Lord is teaching that, okay, while you are attached in your material world, in your Grahastha ashram, but that doesn't mean you will eternally be attached to material sense gratification. You will have to slowly phase out of that phase and then come to this point of real detachment. If our process where you also come to the stage of Vanaprastha, that stage of detachment from the Grahastha ashram, slowly get away from this, thinking that this is my family, this is my wife, this is my child, my, to the point of looking at the society at some stage. And society means not building hospitals or something like that. That can be part of a, what do you call, tributary, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is to develop detachment, but develop attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Next one, what is time? 7:44. Okay, we are there, almost there. Every living entity is controlled by a supernatural force, and thus his sense enjoyment is also under the control of that supernatural force. No one, therefore, can put his faith on Lord Krishna's transcendental sense activities, but one who can become a devotee of the Lord by rendering devotional service. Therefore, here, this point here is, everyone is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, whether we like it or not, Now, if you look at the Lord, and if you are able to take him to heart completely, then we can actually be liberated. Now, everything that the Lord does is completely transcendental, completely spiritual. Now, if you have to look at an act of this Lord, like, okay, he married 16,108 women, then he had children with them, 10 children for each. Now, if we are not able to understand this, then we will not be able to attain that perfection. That is what is being mentioned. That means you can't take, see, every activity of Lord is actually transcendental. Everything is absolute. This is little technical, understand this that way. Technical means, see, the Lord is absolute. Whatever activities he has performed is absolute. Therefore, his marrying 16,108 women and having children with them is also absolute. But if you are not able to understand it from that platform, then that absoluteness cannot be utilized for our perfection. That is the point. Therefore, that's why Prabhupada used to say, we are not mature enough to read the Rasa Leela portions of Krishna, because we will immediately relate to the material side of our thinking, though the Lord is also like us, then we will not be able to get the full benefit of that. Therefore, Prabhupada restricted people from getting into that aspect. But in reality, the great personalities really get so much pleasure by understanding that sections, this intimate pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't see it the way we see it, but that is where the highest pleasure is there. Therefore, but if you are in an immature state, if you go and try to understand that one, we will be more and more bewildered. But theoretically, let us understand this portion, whatever the leelas that the Lord performed, which we in our terms think is material enjoyment, is not material enjoyment, but it is an absolute act in the transcendental sphere. While we may not have the ability to understand this and accept it and derive bliss without thinking of it in a material term, it is better not to go there. That's why, Prabhupada never allowed people to get into these aspects. You understand how to perform devotional service to the Lords Radha and Krishna as Vishnu and Lakshmi. In our temples, we may have Radha Krishna deities, but Prabhupada said you should worship them in the mode of Lakshmi Narayana. Even though the form is Krishna, form is Radha Rani, that is more very highly evolved, very past, very conjugal relationship. But Prabhupada said the deities are there that way, but you should look at them as Lakshmi Narayana. That means in a mood of service, not in the conjugal mood. So this is important. And don't try to take lessons in this way, in a material way, but understand that that is also perfectly absolute. And in that sense, one should be able to actually derive pleasure. That's why he's saying no one will be able to understand that aspect of it. They will, unless they are able to be completely detached. If they are completely detached, they can derive maximum pleasure by understanding the conjugal relationship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But otherwise, they cannot, and therefore don't even go there. That's the principle of this verse number 23. 24. Once upon a time, great sages were made angry by the sporting activities of the princely descendants of the Yadu and Bhoja dynasties, and thus, as decided by the Lord, the sages cursed them. Now he's coming to this pastime of how this Yadu dynasty, got into this thing of having to destroy themselves. So he's giving some background to say there was, some descendant of Yadu dynasty. They actually made fun of one great Brahmana Rishi. That he was his stomach was quite big, and then they were making fun, like he's looking like a pregnant lady, like that. They were making fun of him and laughing and all that, which we do, right? Many people look at people's bodies and then they make fun of them. Hey, look at this guy, how he's looking, how he's walking, how he's all these things. So they did like that, and as a result, that Muni cursed them that you all will also die out of a stone which is born from the stomach, and that stone will destroy all of you. Like the entire Yadu dynasty will be born of a stone which is coming out of the womb, like that. And in the course, a woman delivered a stone, and they knew the stone is going to be the killer. They threw that stone into the ocean, and then some fish ate it, and from there it was caught, and then that stone again, came back. All that story is there. But this is the background that this happened. But again, Prabhupada is writing this commentary very beautifully, where he's saying, don't immediately think that these Yadus, who are actually associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are subjected to this material karma. But what he's trying to actually mention, explain this past time, how we should understand is, whoever you are, if you offend a pure devotee, then you will go through troubles. That is how Prabhupada wanted to see. Is given an explanation for this verse that, why did the Yadus die like this? Because that pure devotee was insulted by him, and therefore the Lord took that offense very seriously. That is also, again, he used that opportunity to teach them a lesson, but at the end of the day, he actually wanted to use that illusion for the world to think that these people have died, these Yadus have died. But actually, Krishna's idea is to make them all go back to their respective planetary system, wherever they are, or if they were from the spiritual world, to be sent back there after the winding up this pastime. But the principle is, don't offend a Vaishnava. Whoever you are, even if you are a very pure devotee, if you are offending the Supreme Personalities, other devotees, then your path is going to be very difficult for spiritual progress. This is there. Even I can go on, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with his own mother, he was very strict. Then he said, because he offended Advaita Acharya in some form and shape, and therefore the Lord, she could not actually get the full bliss being the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he said, you go and seek forgiveness from Advaita Acharya. After that, you will be able to that. So being even the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead could not experience spiritual bliss, ecstasy, because there is some offense which was there for another pure devotee. So that is very important. That's what Prabhupada is addressing in this verse. Next. A few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, and Andaka, who were incarnations of demigods, went to Prabhasa, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave but remained in Dwaraka. There is no commentary for this. The next one has, after arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respect to the forefathers, demigods, and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the Brahmanas in royal charity. So here two aspects are covered. Prabhupada is talking about like all these people who are the Yadu, all these, there are different categories within the devotees. So he's talking about the two main categories. The first one is the Sadhana Siddha, and then the Nitya Siddhas. So the Nitya Siddhas, they are there always with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are never touched by any other aspects of material nature, or their consciousness is never contaminated. But then there are the Sadhana Siddha devotees, like us, or at least like me, who are trying, we are nowhere closer to being, very well situated in spiritual realm. But the Sadhana Siddhas are also, again, of two categories. One are those who are actually having mixed devotion. That means they are like, the mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habitual to philosophical speculation. They are accepting Krishna consciousness. They are doing so many things in Krishna consciousness. But on and off, this desire for fruitive activities come into mind. They may perform some yajna for some benefits, those kind of things. The pure devotees, the other category, are free from all these mixtures and are completely absorbed in the service of the Lord. This is there. Even in the sadhana Siddha devotees, a small portion of the time they may get slightly, compromised in their devotion. They may get into the realm of little material gratification, but this pure devotees never get into that sphere. And it has been mentioned See, these are all very important things. But we should not take it out of context. See, it is mentioned, Prabhupada writes, pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. Right? We say, oh, pilgrimage, we should go. But if you are having an important service for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that is more important than you are going to the places of pilgrimage. So here the example is given, these Nitya Siddhas, they remained with the Lord, while the other Sadhana Siddhas, they all left to Prabhasa to perform whatever, the sacrifice. When the Lord himself is here, what is the need for doing this, going to Prabhasa and performing those things? So those things are important. And it is also mentioned, sometimes, we think if we go to that holy place and do that service only, then, that will get fulfilled. These are all more materialistic way of thinking. Where the Lord is there, the Lord is there. He's absolute. It does not matter whether it is performed here or performed there. But if you are performing with the mood of that devotion to that Lord, wherever he is, that gives the ultimate benefit. It is not like, one has to be performing, I need to do this in that place only, then I will get the benefit. Then there is this mixed devotion. Because here the Nitya Siddhas, they did not leave anywhere. They did not go here and there, because the Lord is here, I am here, and I will serve that Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's all I have. You can take the example of Srila Prabhupada. When Prabhupada had accompanied his spiritual master Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati for yatra somewhere, and then they were all sitting in the morning, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj said, okay, now those who are interested in listening to my class can be here, but those who want to go and take darshan of the various deities, that's a shet. They have gone for a pilgrimage to holy places, dham. So you can go and take darshan of the various manifestations of the Lord in different places in that dham. So majority, in fact, 99% of the people left for the dham, while Prabhupada remained to hear the class of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Swami Maharaj. And Bhakti Siddhanta Swami Maharaj became very happy with Prabhupada. He said, this is actual devotion. Just going around and seeing the deities, what will you see? Do you really have the eyes to see the Lord? But you hear from the pure devotee of the Lord, and that is more important. Prabhupada demonstrated what we are reading in this verse, that serving the Lord in that proper state is more important than simply visiting different places. But don't take this out of context. I am not saying, therefore, devotees stop going to yatra, because we are so conditioned. We need to purify ourselves and go to so many, dhams to get ourselves recharged. That is there. But this is in a different context. So don't quote me in a wrong sense. So Vidura Madhava said like that. No, I'm not saying like that. We need to understand this context very clearly. For the pure devotees of the Lord who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. This is for a pure devotee. But conditioned souls, the sadhana siddhas have to follow, because visiting the dham is one of the important aspects in the 5 principles of devotional life. Visiting holy places, reading Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, like this, there are many, worshipping the deities. These are all the 5 founding pillars of devotional life. This is for the sadhana siddhas. But for the pure devotee like Prabhupada, wherever he was there, that became Vrindavan. Right? So other sannyasis would have tried to, I am old, I will leave my body from here. But Prabhupada said, no, I don't mind. I will go anywhere. I don't mind dying in America. But my job is to serve the Supreme Personality. That is their consciousness. But that is being mentioned here. We should also understand that. Maybe it may not apply to us, but we should understand that theoretically at least. Last 2 verses. The Brahmanas were not only given well-fed cows in charity, but also gold coins, bedding, clothing, animal skin, seeds, blankets, horses, elephants, girls, and sufficient land for maintenance. So this is the discussion of what these other sadhana siddha devotees went to Prabhasas, and what did they do? They went and gave wonderful charity, whatever is prescribed in the Vedas of what you should perform in these holy places. So they went there and actually did dana. So there, when they give girls, don't again read it wrongly. This is very clearly that they kanika dan. That's what we say, right? Give girls means it's not like okay in a different mood. It is in the mood of offering kanika dan to the brahmanas, because
The Brahmanas, this is very also important. The Brahmanas are not anybody's workers. They are dedicated their life for the welfare of the society. Now, the society has to reciprocate by facilitating them. So it's not like a Brahmana will go with a CV to take an employment. He will never work for anybody. A Brahmana is not supposed to work for anybody. If you are working for someone, then you are a Shudra. But a Brahmana will be given charity by all the other people. So he is not working, he is working for their upliftment in the spiritual strata, and they are all duty bound to serve them by offering all their necessities. So it's like, so he is not working to increase their wealth, he is working to give them the spiritual knowledge, and they in turn are providing them whatever they need to sustain, because the Brahmana also having a body which is material, he also needs to eat, he also needs the shelter. Of course, if he's having a mood of a grahastha, then he needs to marry also. So someone has to give him a girl so that he gets a wife. So these things are all considered as the charities that the normal people will have to do to these Brahmanas. And when the Brahmanas who are dedicating themselves to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as a process providing activities for the upliftment of the entire society. So this is a give and take, and therefore this Varnashrama system, the aspect of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra comes into play. The Brahmana is supposed to be working completely for the welfare of the society. And the other sections have to take lessons from the Brahmana, treat him like a teacher, treat him like a guru, and then offer services onto him and learn from him and progress in devotional life. And here it is also mentioned, this is the original system, but it somehow because of our contamination, this Brahmana started exploiting human, the principles given here in the Varnashrama system, and started becoming materialistic. They started enjoying life. And in the process, this caste system became a caste system, not actually a Varnashrama system. And therefore there was exploitation. And then the other people who got exploited by these Brahmanas, they started revolting. And then, this all became a caste system, and, the whole thing is lost now. But technically that is not the case, and nobody is a Brahmana by birth. So you are a Brahmana by qualification. So if you are having the ability to work for the upliftment of the spiritual aspect of every living entity in this society, then you act as a Brahmana. You perform, your behavior is like a Brahmana, and you become a Brahmana. So it's not like because of my birth I am a Brahmin. No. So that has also been discussed by Prabhupada in this verse. Then the last verse. Therefore, thereafter, they offered the Brahmanas highly delicious food stuff, first offered to the personality of Godhead, and offered their respectful obeisances by touching their heads to the ground. They lived perfectly by protecting the cows and the Brahmanas. So the yajna, whatever is to be performed, that is being mentioned here. Yajna means it to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the yajna here is actually offering foodstuff to the foodstuff means not material, foodstuff. It is actually called prasada. That means that yajna, whatever is performed, yajna means offering to the Vishnu, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So once that is offered in any yajna, the idea should be to offer it to Lord Vishnu, not to Indra, Chandra, all these people. Even though Indra is also called Yajnapati, but Vishnu is the topmost Yajnapati, and everything is offered to him. And when that is offered to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then that is distributed as prasada, that is perfect yajna. So anything that we offer, you may offer dress material, you may offer school bags to children, education material, whatever, or food in old age homes or whatever. But ensure that that yajna is actually something which is actually offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then that is distributed as prasada. That is very important. And this here, right, he's writing, right? You see, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one who accepts foodstuffs as the remnants of sacrifice is freed from all sinful reactions. That is the purpose of offering prasada. The prasada will purify the person from the impurities of his karma. And one who cooks foodstuffs for maintenance of his body takes in all kinds of sin. That is there, right, in Bhagavad Gita. It says, you verily eat sin if you are simply taking unoffered food, which lead only to suffering. The foodstuffs prepared by the Yadus at the Prabhasa pilgrimage site to offer to the bona fide Brahmanas there were all offered to the personality of Godhead Vishnu. So that is important. So in this way, they performed all the yajna. These were sadhana devotees, right? They were sadhana siddhas. Because see the Yadu dynasty, not all of them who came were pure devotees, right? There were many demigods. There were many people from the higher planetary system also who came and took part in this pastime of Lord Krishna. So these people were all considered the sadhana, because even in higher planetary system, they are devotees, aspiring devotees. They are also wanting to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. We are also aspiring in this Earth planet to go back to, but there they are having better karma, so they are having better facilities, maybe a better life, a better body, better enjoyment, everything. But at the end of the day, their objective is also to go back to God. It's not like I will simply be in Swarga and enjoy life. No, that's also a limited period of time. Therefore, some of them are given the opportunity to be there along with the Lord when he performs his Leela in some other planetary system. And they go and join there and they improve their bhakti. But so they are sadhana bhaktas and they go to this Prabhasa and perform this yajna, but they do it in a proper way. That means offering everything to Lord Vishnu and then from there doing their prescribed duties. So this is being mentioned, and that we have completed this third chapter, third canto, third chapter. Hare Krishna. I will stop. I'm sorry I got over the time. Some little bit of a current failure also, and I started like 2-3 minutes late. Anyway, thank you for being patient. If there are any questions or comments, welcome. Otherwise, we can conclude. Hare Krishna.